Well, just made it after the England match. I'm sure there's been a few people that have been watching that, and probably people are still watching that, which means we'll probably be talking to ourselves for a good part of the evening, to be fair. But we are live on YouTube and Facebook as well. Two elements of Facebook, actually, my personal page and also on the Imaginarium page. So what's been happening since my last broadcast? Well, I've spent a week in Norway, actually, which was quite amazing. Absolutely fantastic. Took some great pictures of the scenery. Did quite a lot of photography based on that, of course. Not that I can necessarily use it. It's just more that it was a fantastic trip. But for those people who are not aware as well, what Flux is actually all about, it's the Flux Review, which is this magazine, and lovely Lisa in the middle there is the one who spends all of her time actually creating the Flux Review. Goes out to lots and lots of galleries. You can get it in magazine shops, etc., etc. And because of the Flux Review, we do actually have the Flux exhibition, and that's what this is actually mostly all about, is the fact that we are interviewing artists that are going to be in Flux. So the exhibition, 25th to 28th of July, 206 Marylebone Road, London. Tickets on Eventbrite, and as you can see there, it's very busy. This was the private view for the one in Piccadilly in December. So my guest tonight, really interesting. I've been on his website, I've had a good read, and we've also had a good chat between the two of us as well, especially about the football that's just been on. But this is a very interesting thing for me, because obviously I don't do sculpture, so it's great to actually talk to someone who does. But he doesn't just do sculpture, he does illustrations and photography as well. We're going to be talking a bit about that, and also the fact that he's just come back from Texas, where he had an exhibition over there, and he's got a great story about that too. So we'll get into that in a bit. What I'm going to do first of all, though, is just introduce you to his work, which is via a short video. So I think what's really interesting about those is they don't give you any sense of how big those sculptures are. We're going to talk about that though, and we're going to find out exactly that as I bring in David.
Hello.
And now everybody can see, because they're all around you, that those sculptures are actually quite sizable.
Some are big, some are small, some are larger than life, some are smaller than life. There's a little bit of everything, really.
Yeah. So I alluded there a little bit to the fact that you'd been over to Texas, and you'd had an exhibition, and it was only a little while ago too. Now, what I'd like you to share with everybody is something a little bit tricky happened while you were there.
It was indeed tricky. The exhibition was supposed to happen in 2020, but COVID put pay to that. So 4 years later, and a lot of arranging later, we went over. Everything was marvelous and smooth, and there was a lot of sort of pre-show interest. And on the opening night, first half was spectacular, went really well. Loads of people, sold some work. More people were coming, and then about halfway through the show, it was like being caught in a car wash with lightning, and an unscheduled tornado ripped through town. So anybody who was in the gallery stayed in the gallery. Anybody who was going to come to the gallery obviously didn't. So it was exactly what you need after a 4-year planning dilemma, is to have the nature sort of kicking in. There must be a sign from above to say this show is not going to happen smoothly. So there you go.
So, and was that your first ever experience of that kind of weather, or was that?
It was, yeah. It was, and I would have. It's something I like the idea of experiencing, not necessarily on the opening night of my show, but it was totally unprecedented, and there was an awful lot of damage, and in an hour and a half, it did essentially what a hurricane would do over a period of a day or 2 days. It was just utter carnage in the city. Trees were down, lights were out, no electricity, no this, no that, no stop signs at 4-lane highways. It was utter carnage. But the show did okay.
Well, that's good.
That's good. At least something.
Yeah, it is at least something, certainly. Now, we've got a few things for sure to talk about. As people have already seen with the video that just came on, is your sculptor work. There's also your illustrations. I already had somebody on Facebook say to me, "Oh, love the illustrations. Hope I can catch the chat." And of course, people can always catch it afterwards because it'll be on YouTube forever and a day. But let's just talk about where you started and how you are where you are now. So what was your introduction to art?
Wow, that is a big question. Okay, so I'm the youngest of 4 children, and between me and the next youngest, there's a 10-year gap. Right. My sister was always very, very creative, and I remember at the age of 4 for me and 14 for her, she got a piece accepted into a Central Leeds exhibition, and going down to an art gallery for the first time, and just seeing people really loving the work. And of course, me at home, I'd be watching what my sister was doing. If she wasn't looking, I would steal her felt tip pens and do some creative drawing in a sort of stabbing motion. And she'd say, "Have you been borrowing my felt tip pens?" And I'd say, "Well, no, I haven't. Well, maybe a tiny bit." So it's having a big sister that you kind of looked up to, and she was a bit of a child prodigy, so that would go back a long way into the 1970s. Wow. So it's just copying my sister, not stylistically, but in terms of art input. We are 2 very different creatures, but that's really where it came from.
And so how come you ended up going down the sculpture route then? Presumably you started off with your illustration type work first, but then or did you?
Well, I did a foundation course after A-levels, and if you know a foundation, you cover all the bases: printmaking, painting, sculpture, photography, 3D design, and so on and so forth. And I was, to all intents and purposes, going to be a graphic designer. And we had in the graphics department one of the most detestable individuals running the course.
Please don't name him.
I'm not going to name it. I don't think he's there anymore. It's a long time retired. And there's nothing.
Come through the door.
Don't. There's nothing he hated more than sculpture and sculptors.
Right.
And the graphics, we were overloaded with work. And at Christmas time, I didn't tell him that I was going to leave. So I just went home for the Christmas break. Enjoyed enjoyed it with my family. Came back in January and said, you know what? I'm going to change to sculpture. And a little vein bulged on his brow. But he managed to sort of rein it in, and he was very complimentary in a backhand way. So you could have got into one of the graphics courses in London, and Ravensbourne, as he put it. I didn't, and I went to sculpture just to annoy him. But having done that, I actually found, as you do when you're a stupid 18-year-old, I actually really enjoyed it. And from nowhere, from no 3D training through school, all of a sudden, here I am, and really loving it. So carried on through foundation course with sculpture, and got into my university on a sculpture portfolio.
And where was that?
That was Sunderland.
Oh, okay. Because you're a Leeds man, aren't you? So
well, yeah, but then Sunderland loved Leeds because of the FA Cup. But I don't want to talk about that.
I wasn't talking about football. I just meant that's where you were from. you brought it back to football.
Yeah. The reason I went to Sunderland, okay, I went around London colleges and got on really well with the central tutor, Central St Martin's as it later became. And I was 99% going to Central. And I'd one day left in my half term. And I remember my teacher from school, who was very instrumental in saying, if you want to do art, you are good enough. He was from the northeast, and he did his degree in Sunderland.
Yeah.
And he used to tell this really lovely story of painting in a live class, and is aware of a long, thin gentleman, as he put it, coming in the side door and walking around the back of easels and checking people's work as they were drawing. And he leaned over to my tutor and said, I wish I could draw like that. So he turned around, and it was L.S. Lowry.
Wow.
So between my tutor and L.S. Lowry, I thought, I'll go see Sunderland. And I had this impression of a grimy hellhole. But actually, when I got up there, the department was in a beautiful park. All the student housing was former shipping housing, so it was huge houses. And of course, I was just about the last year that did full grants before tuition fees came in. And I thought, well, if I go to Sunderland, my grant will go this far. If I go to Central St Martin's, it'll probably go out this far, and I have to get a part-time job and so on and so forth. So Sunderland it was.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that happened to me. I didn't get a full grant because a couple of things happened, but it meant that my parents had to give me money to go. But it couldn't have been a worse time for them because my dad had changed his job, and of course it was then means tested on your previous year, so it wasn't great, especially when you're down the Union bar every night. Very.
I was
tricky.
lucky insofar my father retired about. It retired in the June or July, and I started in the September. So once you're retired, they don't means test you on your previous year. He was retired, and it was automatic full grant. So,
right,
I was lucky. I didn't have to sort of lean on him for money. So my student bar bill was kept in check just about.
Well, yeah, I think when I was at uni, it was 19 pence a pint, so you could get off your face for £1. Now, so let's just have I've got your website up on the other screen, and I'm going to share that because I want to just talk about, before we get into the sculpture, I want to talk about the illustrations. And you've got, I see photography there, so we'll bring those up too, because quite a few people are into photography. So let me just share my screen, which is will be this one. And what we'll do is we should be able to pop up on the side here, which we can.
Okay.
So we spoke earlier, and you mentioned about the first one being traffic jam, which we can see here. So you said you did this for London, the London Olympics, and inspired by London traffic jams, I guess.
Absolutely. I was imagining, I had this in mind about if London is this busy now, because I'd have to drive in to take work to the gallery, and it would essentially take half a day, and this is from like an hour's ride. If it's this bit bad now, how is it going to be when the Olympics are on? It's just going to be gridlock and standstill. So they're obviously a play on words, traffic and jam, and it was something of a. As I was designing it, I actually got to go to the Olympics, and they had the dedicated lanes, and everything was smooth as silk, and it turned into something that I was dreading to something that I actually, for once I'm actually proud of this country, the way they organized it. It was absolutely magnificent. So
it was absolutely.
The traffic jam, it spawned a few followers, but that was the original concept.
Yeah.
And of course printmaking, which was one of my first loves. So
okay, so is this what you've done? So this is from printmaking, is it?
Yeah, these are they are it's like a, what is it, lino cut.
Yeah.
So
okay.
But at uni I was more into etching, but these, because etching requires acid baths and fume cupboards and a lot more kit. This is relatively direct. So.
Well, I quite like this one. Another play on words. So explain what this is called.
This is frog's porn. You can say that in any way you like.
Frog's porn, yes. Over 18s only, no tadpoles. I think that's brilliant. And my question to you is then, are you likely to have any of these for sale at Flux?
I'm happy to bring a portfolio. My stand is essentially sculpture, but I could quite easily bring in.
Well, I think there's an intention that there will be. Lisa will be selling from which is what she did in Piccadilly. She'll have like a small table shop area. So if you have got any of those, it's probably worthwhile bringing. But I will check that with her as well. Yeah. But I'm sure there are people that will go on your website and see these. We just have one more from this, which I saw down here. The urban fox, which I think again is very, very clever.
Is Urbane, and he is actually
Urbane,
based on the cyclist who won gold medal.
Oh yes. So again, where does this come from? Where does the idea come from? Where do you actually get that? I'm going to stop sharing the screen here and then come back to. So where do you get the actual idea from in the first place? So
it could be from any number of sources. I really like the play on words, as you picked up earlier on. That's one of my main things.
Yeah,
and I like taking complicated ideas and trying to boil them down to the bare bones and make them super simple. And that could be whether it's 3-dimensional or 2-dimensional work. There's normally backstories behind most things, rather than just a still life or just something like, I never ever have a piece of work called Untitled, because there's always a story behind it, and I like to throw a bone in, throw something in just to get people's minds ticking over.
And I think that's definitely something for me, because everything I do has got a story behind it, and I think that and when you do the type of work you do and the type of work I do, it needs a story. And it's what's interesting. I'm just also, while I'm talking, I'm having a look at your photography section, so I'm going to quickly share that as well, because what I want to know. So looking at this and these pictures that are on here, do you is this part of your work? So would you use that photograph as like a reference tool for your sculpture, or is this no? I like creating pictures as well,
That is
or
a very
both.
good. Yeah, it's a good question, and I do photography for photography's sake. So the stuff that you'll see on the website is all classic photography.
Hmm.
The photographs that I take that assist me with my work are very different types of photos, and it's more in the details of what's behind something. So if I'm doing a giraffe, I can take a really nice photograph of a giraffe. Or if I'm sculpting in the studio, I think, well, what does that little area behind the ear and the horn look like?
Mm.
So a lot of my reference photos are random elements of creatures rather than a classic shot of a kudu or a leopard in a tree eating a warthog. So
Yeah.
it's kind
So I mean, this one, for example, a leopard in a tree eating a warthog. I think I can make that a bit bigger. Yeah. So people can go on your website and see this. But again, what I find interesting about what you actually are doing is not just taking these photographs, as we can see here,
mm,
but I read on your website too, and we've had a chat about this, that you actually spend time in Africa
mm,
uh, and really get down and dirty effectively with the
mm,
animals so that you can then come back and sculpt them,
yes.
which that needs a little bit of explanation, I think.
Okay. Again, going back to my being the youngest of four, when I was about 12 years old, my sister and brother separately, they both went to live in Africa. And my mum and dad were initially devastated because the thought of traveling to Africa, it felt to them like a long way from home.
Hmm.
But on the plus side, we got to go out pretty much every summer holiday and spend 6 weeks on safari, looking at amazing creatures in a lot of game parks, which at the time were next to deserted.
Yeah.
So it just came from a being the youngest of four and having this amazing opportunity, like spoilt to some extent, I suppose, just being able to go on safari from the
Mm,
ages of 12 or 13
mm,
onwards, and it just kind of fired up a love and a respect for wildlife and conservation and all the amazing things you see while you're out there. You look at it, you can smell it, you can feel it. It's like a it's like a living safari. And if you see something in a walking down the road, it's not just walked out of a Disney film.
no,
It's got
no.
beautiful white teeth. It's messy. It's got things living on it. There's a macro and a micro safari going on, and I love the sort of looking in a wide aspect and then also focusing down on little details. So it was,
So that gives you that. It also gives you the point of, well, this is how these animals live. This is how they are, and therefore you can convey that in your sculpture. And so on that note, let me just. I'm going to have to jump on with these. So I've got a couple of your pieces here. So let's
okay.
bring you and myself up on the side. So the first thing that I noticed, obviously, is all the words, and you've got on the front of each of in fact, the one on the left, completely wings as well,
Mm,
and but then you've got some memories too precious to lose. So there's a message. There's certainly a message in each one of your sculptures. And at the end of this, what I also want you to do is just show people how big these are, because these
no problem.
definitely are a lot bigger than that. But can we talk about what the words are? Why are the words? What are they there for? What's the story behind that?
Okay, so going out to Africa, and looking at African artwork, they don't necessarily have the money to buy the latest materials. So if you look at an incredible say, a VW Beetle that's made by an African guy sitting on a street corner with a pair of pliers and a bit of fire in his belly. I just love the fact that you've got little random elements of text and image caught up in something, so it's essentially recycled, and recycling is something that goes back to childhood. You know, when I was watching TV shows, it was all things like the Wombles and Bagpuss and things where you would sort of repurpose and rebuild, remake. I suppose, like, parentally, it's the post-war generation of the expression, what is it, make, do and mend, where you can just you can take all these things and give them another life in a way that, you know, like when your TV went south, you get somebody to come out and fix it. You wouldn't just go down and buy another one from Argos or wherever. Everything had a lifespan and a kind of drive forward. So text is in some respects doffing my hat to Africa and Africans, and it's also, if you look at a piece like either of them really that are up on the screen, it also allows you to sort of define shape and form around a piece. So it's almost like if you were doing a drawing, you'd have crosshatch shading going around the contours of a piece, and it sort of allows you to sort of compartmentalize neck, body, wings, tail. And if you were able to zoom in or even come to the show, because the dodo and the penguin are in it, you can see how it sort of jumps and shifts between shape, you know, between, say, the wing and the body and the legs and so on and so forth. So it, on certain pieces, it's text specific to a commission, but generally it's just randomly found text. But if you look at, say, the wings on the penguin, they are more headlines. And if you sort of think of a bird or any creature in nature, is essentially there to pull in other creatures. Like the male is there saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm really sexy."
Yeah.
And it's like they've got a nice crest of feathers, and headlines are a little bit like that. It's like the strap line to get your attention, to suck you in. So you'll find lots of these pieces have headlines which will lead you in. Some of which are specific to a piece, and other which are a slightly more ambiguous sense. So it's like a fly trap. It kind of drags you in and gets you. You're not going to walk past it. Hopefully, you can stop and have a look, and it's another means of slowing you down if you're in a gallery, or, you know, there's a lot of work to look at. It's a little trap to ensnare you.
Yeah, and make you think too, which is
that is the ultimately is the idea. It's I think ultimately it's pro conservation, anti hunting, and you can take it at whatever level you like. But it's a bit like a Trojan horse of an idea, insofar as, you know, you look at it and you'll either get it or you won't get it. But if you like it, that's fantastic. Or if it makes you really angry, that's fantastic. Because I had an exhibition I was hanging a few years back, and there was a lady who walked past the doorway and then backed up. And I could tell by the way she backed up, she was not happy. And she came waggling her finger down the gallery. And this is absolutely disgusting. It's disgraceful. And this is rather good. And it's just like, excellent. You've got it.
Yeah.
So at a distance, they look like one thing. Close up, something entirely different.
And that's your mounted but not stuffed.
That is it.
Which is a fantastic strap line. Absolutely love that. Brilliant. Two more. So I can see you like them in the glass domes. But again, there's the words, a gift from nature, and is it real on the other one. But so far we've gone sort of down the bird route. There's quite a few of yours that are, but I think in your right at the end of the video, there was a huge giraffe as well. That was
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's not just birds. These just happen to be the ones that you're going to have at Flux as well. But
It could be anything. And if you look on the website, there's a
yeah,
picture of to date the largest commission I've ever done, which was for a great Irish deer, and they went extinct in the last ice age, so 20 odd thousand years ago, and they had a 14-foot antler span and stood about 10 feet high at the shoulder, and I was commissioned to do a great Irish deer from head to toe, and it was just a monster of a piece.
and I'm looking on your website. Which one is that?
I can't remember which.
Which page
It's
is
in. It's in. There are 3 galleries. It's in one of them. It's possibly in gallery 3
Yeah. Okay.
because it's an older piece. But
okay. Is that the reindeer?
no, it's not a reindeer. It's actually a picture of me standing back below
Yeah.
the sculpture, having just installed the antlers for the first time. I mean, it's a bit like Howard Hughes and the Spruce Goose. I was not entirely sure whether it was going to fly or just bomb and fall apart. And it didn't fly, but it didn't fall apart either. So
also then that leads on to a question. All right, forget commissions for a minute, but if you're going to create stuff like we're looking at on the screen now, what determines the size?
Well, the size is to a large extent determined by the glass domes,
right?
Which is kind of an interesting way of working for me, because hitherto making things actually as I make them, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit bigger in this direction or a little bit bigger in that direction, or I can rein it in here or there. Whereas taking a glass dome, it has to fit.
Yeah.
So it was like adding a discipline that I hadn't had to rein myself in to that extent previously. And in some of the early pieces, and occasionally latterly, if I get it wrong, I could go back and break a piece's legs and sort of crank a nose this way or that, or reshape the wings. The piece that you had up previously with the penguin with the yellow crests, I had to put a rubber band around its wings because he got a bit excited and started waving his arms around. And when he dries, he was going more like this. I had to sort of rein him in very gently using rubber bands while he was still wet, so he was in an appropriate slot, so I could just get a glass dome over him.
So what are you using to create these then? What's your material?
It's a chicken wire armature. And then I use plaster bandage and then papier-mâché. And some of the detailings are found objects. So the yellow feathers on the penguin they're ostrich feathers, and the toenails are clothes pegs from the clothesline. So when it comes to hanging out the laundry, there's never enough. And I was denied knowledge of where are the clothes. I don't know. I haven't seen any of them. And if I can recycle it, I will. So there's
So that's that. Yeah. So that's getting home your message about recycling, basically, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about this one on the left of the screen, black with added sweetener. But as quite a few people who are watching will know, steampunk is my thing, and this looks very much like there's a bit of that influence going on here, especially with the eye and the hat. But what we'll come to in a sec, because obviously we've looked at these ones so far, and you can't really get a true idea of how the kind of size they are. So before we go into this one on the left, let's talk about the owl on the right. And again, glass dome, but really quite different because he's not words all over him. There's a few down the bottom there, and there might be some around the back, but can't see that obviously.
There are.
Okay,
yes.
Cool. Yeah, cool. So again, when you decide on the bird, animal, whatever it is that you're going to actually create, where the skill comes, and I'm asking this question because this is what I can see. People know that I'm a technical artist, so therefore the skill is the bit that I focus on. But where the skill comes is A, getting the scale right, and B, getting your sculpture to do exactly what it is you're trying to achieve at the end of the day. But you've got to have the skill to do it in the first place.
Okay.
It's kind of a bit of a statement, really, isn't it? Well, I've just made
Yeah,
it rather
let's
than
wait for the question at the end.
But, well, the question is how, which follows that then, how many times do you start again?
Very rarely.
Well done.
From scratch.
Brilliant.
I think there is a great deal of satisfaction, shall we say, in hammering it away at something. And I can count maybe on the fingers of one hand in 20 odd years when I've actually just said, do you know what, it's not going to work.
No.
And occasionally I've put things on one side and just left them. I might leave them for a year, 5 years, and eventually I'll go, that one looks kind of like this. If you were to turn it upside down and add ears, it looks like an elephant head instead of being the body of that was the body of an ostrich.
Yeah.
So it's just, but very rare. I'm very dogged in pursuing something to its natural conclusion. I'm very impatient in a lot of areas of my life, but when it comes to this is where I really kind of get down and concentrate.
And that's, I think, so far of everybody that I've interviewed so far says the same thing, that they might be in total chaos in their life, but when it comes to creating their art, they tend to be way more careful and precise about what they're doing, and only then. I mean, sometimes we all go through the phase of thinking, oh, maybe I could have done that better, or potentially not quite finished yet, I might do a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I've never made a piece that I'm entirely happy with.
No,
there's always got to be room for improvement,
and I think that's true of a lot of artists, to be fair.
Because if you don't, then what you're going to do, you're going to replicate it again and again, and you're kind of caught in a loop of Groundhog Day, doing exactly the same thing over. There's always something that you can tweak, and there's always something you think, you know what, I wish I'd have done this instead of that, but maybe next time.
Well, interestingly enough, so I mentioned it when we showed the piece. So it's to your left, I think, or I don't know, because we're reversed. So no, it's to your right. Yeah, it's there. So bring that one and show everybody just how big that sculpture is.
It is. Yeah, about this big.
Yeah, that is amazing.
And you've got, if you're looking, I don't know how well the camera can pick it up, but if you look inside,
oh yeah,
you just about see. So the details in the
eyepiece
and the inside, and his beak. If you were to take his hat off, he would be complete.
Oh, brilliant!
So when as a kid, when you went to the theatre to see whatever pantomime that it was, so you'd live in the moment, and then you'd watch somebody going off stage right, and if you were close enough, you could kind of look around the corner and see that it's all just held up with pieces of wood and string and what have you. But I wanted to try and make something which was, even if it wastes my time, just it kind of works in the whole. And I know if I bought this piece, I'd be looking under the gap to see, has he done this? Has he done that? It's just a personal mania.
You've always have to think about what someone else would look at and think, oh, okay, if I bought this, would I be looking at it carefully? And I see the dodos behind you as well, which is again, is not a small piece either, and it looked small when we were looking at it. Yeah, it looks small, whereas the penguin does look probably as it did, but they were side by side. So there's, yeah, look at the size of that. Yeah,
I
that's
mean, it's big,
absolutely
but I
brilliant.
wouldn't say it was overly large.
No, but it's so cool to create something like that.
Hmm.
Really cool. And you, so it must be quite interesting for you when you spend time in Africa and you're looking at these animals and different ones that you're going to come back and create.
Hmm.
But what grabs you? So for instance, I was talking to an artist a couple of weeks ago who said that sometimes he'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and he'll come down, he's got to start a picture because he's suddenly got that inspiration. But I guess if you're going over there, do you see what you're going to do when you're in Africa, or do you feel it when you come back?
I feel it all the time, I think.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not working, the previous artist, I'll wake up in the middle of the night with a solution to an issue that has been kind of on the back burner. And I might not necessarily get up at 2 a.m. to sculpt, but I'm always thinking about things, and it could be at any time of the day. I could be, for example, watching England play football and come up with a solution to something that has been bugging me all day about a piece I've been working on.
Yeah.
It's any time of day or night. It can be. I mean, it sounds really pretentious, but I've even sort of had it in dreams where I've been going through scenarios, so I never really escape it.
No, and well, that's certainly true of me. And a lot of my work will stem from, I could hear a piece of music, for example, and suddenly that will give me the idea, or quite often I'll have a conversation with somebody, and again, that conversation will lead me down a path to a particular idea for a picture, or even sometimes it just might be the way somebody looks, and that would generate a whole big thing for me. And I've got to. What about, so if you're going to start a sculpture, is there anything? Do you sketch anything? Sorry, I've just seen I've just caught on your website as I've looked left. There's a fox smoking a cigarette. So, but
there he is.
Yeah, he's at the back there. Yeah,
but smoking's not cool, so we're covering him up with mine.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought now completely. But I think that you do you sketch anything out first off, or do you just go straight into putting the sculpture together?
The only time I'll do drawings is if it's for a client who wants to see how something might look ahead of commissioning.
Yeah.
Because when I start the process, I will try and keep it within a certain size parameter, especially if it's going in a jar. But I'm essentially drawing three-dimensionally when I start a piece, because if you imagine working with chicken wire, it's got a degree of malleability in it, and it can be short and fat or long and thin. If you pull it, there's every action has a equal and opposite reaction. If you pull it this way, it's going to kink. So it's essentially the whole process is drawing three-dimensionally, whether that's at the armature stage of the process or at the finished, adding the headlines and the cherry on top of the cake, so to speak. There's drawing elements in pretty much everything. From
I guess they kind of need to get a bit of an idea of what you're going to create before you start. So
some do, some don't. I mean, it really depends on the client. Some people are happy to let you just get on with it, and other people are a little bit more descriptive and they want a hand in the creative process, which is absolutely fine. Some people, you sort of imagine your average artist is sitting alone in a studio all day working on something. So the idea of interacting, for me, I really like it. I like a slightly more difficult client. Obviously, there is a limit to that. but I like a challenge, and it kind of pushes you maybe in a direction that you might not necessarily have considered.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, yeah, this is something that I don't do, and primarily because I've had people ask me if I will create a portrait of them, and I can't really do that very easily because they would want it to look like them, and that's not how I work. The people that I create and the people that I photograph, they look how I want them to look, and therefore it's not a photograph, it's not a portrait. It's with my work is a representation of a character that I will be creating. So I don't really do. I mean, I've had a few people for sure ask me about commissions, but then I have to explain that, look, you could not put that on your wall and tell everybody it's a portrait, because it's not. It's a representation of how I think, if in my head you would look. So it's really, it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting.
With people, I've done commissions for people, having sort of not wanted to for years and years. I caved in about 6 years ago. Can you do my dog? Can you do my dog? And I'm like, no, not really. And then I said to somebody, look, I've been saying no for God knows how many years. If you want me to have a go, I will. It will be, and maybe you can do this. You know, it will be the essence of your dog. You sort of give me some background history and what your dog likes and what dog does. You know, what it does this and here and there. And if you just, I don't know, I've not had a portrait turned down, and I said, look, because of the nature of the medium, it's not going to look like somebody who's cast it in bronze, having worked with clay or what have you. But there is a degree of the essence of something that you can put in, which so far, if you're upfront about that from the off, then it can work.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think from my point of view as well, is that obviously I've got to photograph them in the first place, because that's what I do. I'm a photographic artist, so I've got to photograph them in the first place. And the problem is with a number of people is they're not really great in front of the camera, and that's the hardest part of all, is getting them to do something that is alien to them, really, because often people go, oh God, I'd love to have my portrait done, but actually they've never done it before. And you know, whereas obviously I photograph a lot of steampunks, a lot of burlesque artists, a lot of people that do that, and in truth, pretty much everybody that I do photograph know exactly how I work. So that's fine. But when someone comes along and asks for a commission, different thing. And I suppose when they say, "Oh, can you do my dog or a cat or whatever it is?" then you're right. You're effectively, I guess, almost it's a caricature of that animal in some respects. It's got all the essence of it, which again, I can see there would be quite a market for that, actually, to be fair, if you were prepared to do that.
It's been prepared to do it, and to be honest, I only took it up. The first one I did was when it was in a quiet phase, shall we say?
Yeah.
I thought, you know what have I got to lose? You know, the materials aren't that expensive. Just give it a go. And I'll always kind of doubt myself over going, yeah, I can do it. I can do it. And having done that, you know, kind of taking a leap of faith, it's been okay.
Well, so you're going to be doing Flux, and this will be your first time doing Flux.
It will indeed.
And apparently, you were talking to me the week that somebody else said, you know, you should put yourself forward for this, which I've done, I think 5 now. This will be 5, I think, for me. I haven't seen anything like this there, so that's going to be really, really good. It'll be something new for people as well. What I'm going to do is just going to show a little 1-minute film so people get a flavour of what Flux is all about, and then we'll do the last sort of 10 minutes seeing where you are going with the rest of your work in the future. So we'll just play this for a second. So you can see there just how busy it gets. And what I will say is, if you are able to, I know you're quite away from it, but come to as many days as you can, primarily because people really want to talk to you about your work, and you've got way more chance of making a sale and talking to people and people understanding you and more people starting to follow you, etc., etc. If you do come down to it, it's manic on the PV night. I mean, there's about 1,000 people in that one, as you can see.
That's good.
It is manic, but fantastic fun. Really, we really get some brilliant people that come along, and people look, this is the 11th edition, so people know that it's an established exhibition. And one of the beauties of it, as I say every week pretty much, is that Lisa Gray, who curates it, puts it all together, spends God knows how many hours putting it together. She does a fantastic job of making the exhibition flow. So you don't get two people alike next to each other, or you know, in fact, I can't even think of two people alike in the exhibition, to be fair. But you can see from that what I've just shown you, there are sculptors. There's all sorts of completely different artwork. There's photography. There's mixed media. All types of different artists, and generally sort of 80+ artists that actually do it. So you can imagine just how difficult that is to not only plan, get all the walls put up, etc., but also to plot where everybody's going to go and how it's all going to work. But you will really enjoy it.
I can't wait.
And to be fair, I did my, when I did my first one, I just thought I've got to keep doing these because it's so. It's such a good experience, and it particularly the last one because of where it was in London, and this one's in Marylebone Road. So there are going to be a lot of people in London in July as well. We get quite a lot of tourists. It's going to go out to obviously a lot of different places to push that side of it as well. But that's another thing as well. You suddenly end up with somebody saying, "Okay, can I buy the picture, but can you ship it off to?" Well, I sold one that had to be shipped over to Belfast, for example. So, and there were people from Canada and America and all sorts that came to the last one. So it's certainly something to push, and you really, really will enjoy yourself.
Yeah, shipping is always a big thing. I know I have people that I tend to trust for quotes for sending things around the world. So
yeah,
if the client doesn't want to handle it themselves, then there is always an option.
Well, yeah, I mean, taking a couple of those big ones on the plane might be a bit tricky, I should think, if they're going back to America or anything. But shipping is an issue. I had to ship a picture to Singapore, and the amount of money it cost me, and also even though it was going there for an exhibition, it still cost me like £400 to ship it there, and then you have to pay all the import tax as well, even though it's just going there for an exhibition. So people don't understand all the add-ons. They never understand the add-ons.
And going to America for the show, I paid the shipping.
Did you?
On the exhibition, so that was a considerable sum of money.
Yeah,
I got a more favourable cut when it came to the sales.
Yeah,
but in 2020, I'd have taken your hand off for a deal like that. Compare shipping costs then to shipping costs now, it just went absolutely mad.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've noticed. So I have a book that I've been working on, a trilogy that I've been working on, and I had to ship some. So when it first came out, there's only 1,000 copies of it, but when it first came out, and I had a big order up front, quite a few were from Europe, but then there were some from Hawaii, America, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, and those charges, the long distance ones, probably around about £40-45 to post a book. It's double that now. Double that. You know, where I was sending a book to America for 17, it's now 48. You know, it's absolutely bonkers how it's gone.
But where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, there is, and there's quite a few. Yeah, there's quite a few other options that you can have, especially if you know people in that country. That does certainly.
Yeah, and as with anything, shop around. Don't just go for the first one you get. And even if you get a quote, say, well, you know, it's a little bit more than I was hoping for, and you'll always have a margin that you can put somebody down.
So we know we've got Flux coming out. What else have you got coming up this year?
Goodness, one step at a time. I'm working on a commission at the moment for a client in Switzerland, as it happens, and a couple of other commissions in the pipeline. I will just see what comes. If I'm not working for something specific, then I'll work in a more general sense around what I think might fly, say, coming towards Christmas. Yeah. So there's nothing major in terms of exhibitions. There's a couple of possibilities, but everything is up for grabs. Yeah, but I'm basically in the studio pretty much every day, whether I'm working on a commission or a piece of stock, if you like. And hoping to get over to Italy. My wife's Italian, so hoping to get out there also in the autumn and do a bit of photography. Yeah.
What part of Italy will that be?
Central Italy. She's from Lazio, so about an hour and a half inland from Rome, heading up towards places like Amatrice. Yeah. So essentially in the earthquake zone. Yeah.
So I've been all over Italy, right down to the boat at the bottom, all the lakes, been everywhere. Never been to Rome. So one place. Never been to Rome. Been everywhere else. Pompeii, Herculaneum, done all of that coast right down the bottom.
Don't leave it too long.
No, well, it's one of my favourite countries ever.
You go to Rome, you will go back and again and again. Yeah. I think I've been about three or four times now, and I don't even scratch the surface of what there is to look at. It's immense.
It's sort of kind of similar. When I went to Pompeii, I could have spent 2 days there, not one. It was boiling hot. We were walking around all day, but I just was absolutely fascinated by their building techniques. Actually, I built houses for 25 years, so I was really interested in that completely, and the fact that they had metal lintels above the doors, all that kind of thing. And you're thinking, wow, they actually had these at that time. Yeah. It's quite an interesting place, but
I always ask my wife, so what happened to your country? Having given us central heating, piping, and this and that, and then it's relatively chaotic now, if gorgeous at the same time.
Yeah, and in fact, we went there a long time ago now. Crikey! So my oldest grandchild's 13, coming up to 14. So it was before he was born, and we decided that let's buy a house on the East Coast. We can have 3 months there, 3 here, 3 there, 3 here. I could work with an internet connection, so there's no big deal. And but as I say, then grandchildren came along and put paid to that completely. But I just love the Italian attitude. I love the way that they, a meal isn't just about the food; it's about everything that goes with
everything.
And I don't know if Lisa's watching, because I can't actually see who's watching, but I know Lisa loves her food and her wine. So she's a big fan of that, and she would absolutely love quite a bit of that coast as well. And the wine flows at Flux as well. So make sure you grab a glass of that.
I will very much do that.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't know where you are in relation to me in the exhibition itself, but we will definitely catch up there.
Oh, 100%.
We've come up to our hour now, believe it or not. It goes quite quickly. We can both go and drown our sorrows over the poor performance we've watched before coming on here.
We're not talking about that, though.
No, not talking about. When you started talking about Lazio, I immediately thought of Gaza. I must admit.
Oh God, yeah.
But
the family's more of a Roma team than Lazio.
Yeah, but yeah, cool. All right, really great to talk to you. I'm really looking forward to seeing all your work in real life, as I'm sure many people who watch this will. I'll just check. I don't think. No, I was going to say, did we have any chats coming in? But we didn't. And I think, with people will be able to watch this now. I think what happens is it gets changed from being a live performance, and it goes on to being a video that people can watch. So there'll be quite a few people.
If anybody does watch it, then they can just ask questions, and I'll check in every once in a while and
put them underneath. Yeah, that's the best thing. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly have.
It's really flown by. I've loved it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much. Don't run away. I'll stop the feed, but we'll have a little chat afterwards.
No problem.
And, that'll be fantastic. So
thank you for watching.
Well, I did kind of give you an indication that would be quite amazing, and I've got to say, how good is David's work? Absolutely stunning. And I think please come along to Flux and see his work, have a chat with him. You've heard a bit about him on here, so you'll be able to come along and see that. Next week I have somebody different, so if we can just if you don't mind just hanging on for one little second, I will show you exactly who that person is. So we've already been through all of these, always been through David's work, but here we have Paolo next week. Very different again, completely different. You'll see that I've put this, or I will be putting this onto Instagram, so you can see the links and stuff. But this is the guy that I will be talking to next week, day before my birthday too. So looking forward to that. Again, it's something completely new for me to be talking to somebody like this, who does this kind of work. So tune in next week, and thank you so much for watching, and that'll be me done. Thank you.